Steve, did you want to see something on my phone?
Oh, nothing. No, that's nothing. I'm good.
Do you have AirPlay hooked up in here?
Yeah, can you just throw it up on the screen?
Yeah, what would you like me to throw up on the screen?
Oh, just, stuff that shows me what kind of a man you are, Normal conversational stuff.
You guys, I just got a text from Nick Robertson.
Oh, yeah?
He's been saying that Keith's been making him show his shoes.
Oh.
He wants him to take off his shoes and air his feet.
Show me your feet.
He wants to show his feet to the whole team.
Well, that's because he's
we need to go at Keith.
It's because Sheldon Keefe is one of my fan group, the Feet People.
Okay.
No,
I'm glad that never caught on.
No, it did catch on.
No,
the
it
Feet
didn't.
People exist.
It didn't.
Hashtag Feet
It
People.
didn't. None of you. It didn't catch on.
I did want to say this before we get into the Mike Babcock situation, which obviously we're going to lead with. Matthew from my DMs in response to last episode. Hey guys, in regards to Monday's episode, my friend pooped himself on a roller coaster at Canada's Wonderland.
Oh, no.
We were talking about that Steelers picture, right?
Oh.
And we were wondering, what happens when you do that at a public space? What do you walk out pantsless? Do you have to rewear your pants? What happens? And they said they gave him a rain poncho and free pickings of the lost and found.
Fair.
I think that's a really good play
fair.
on Wonderland's part.
Also,
Yeah,
how did you get to the point where you told the Wonderland people?
Well, because you have no pants, man.
White shorts.
Imagine you're a grown man in a park without pants on, and you're with a bunch of kids there. You think that's a good look?
What?
No.
At what point did you lose your pants? What are you talking about?
You shit them.
Yeah, so I didn't take them off immediately in the middle of the
yeah.
park.
Why wouldn't you
What's
take them?
wrong
You
with
go to the
you?
bathroom and you watch the pants.
You need to give this person some credit. I'm sure their first idea was hide it. Then when they discovered they couldn't do that,
Yeah.
then they're like, how about the poncho and lost things?
No, my first thing is I'm leaving.
I'm just done
No,
for
but
the
you
day?
I'm done. I'm going
Can't walk
home.
through the park with shitty pants.
Well, no, the good
No.
thing about Canada's Wonderland is it only takes about 8 to 10 seconds to walk through.
yeah. Oh
No,
my God.
So you shit yourself on Behemoth, right?
Yeah.
You're
Which is
on
at the back of the park.
You're on the ride. You shit yourself. So do you get off of the ride or do you sit there?
Well, yeah, you get off the ride.
I get off the ride,
Yeah.
and if I can get up and walk off the ride, then I'm walking all the way home.
I'm not
talking to anybody about me shitting my pants.
This is a great fucking show.
I think you need to go to the bathroom and at least wash it, because what are you going to do when you get to your car and that parking lot goes for miles?
No.
You're not going to jump in your car or jump on the, what's the
400.
What's the transit at Vaughan? Because everybody's got their own different names. Because there's the
What's Vaughn's?
Brampton's got
the Zoom.
the Zoom bus,
Yeah.
where everybody's on meetings and we're going, hey, thank you for joining us in this.
Mississauga's got My Way.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know what Vaughn's is, but you're not jumping on public transit in Vaughan. You're not jumping on a go bus. You're not jumping in your car with poopy pants. So at some point, you're going to have to wash them off. The only place to do that is the Wonderland wash.
The Viva.
The Viva.
Yeah, that's the one.
right.
That's the one in York.
That's
region.
right.
Hockey podcasts are so normal. So normal this week.
I know it's a bit of a dramatic week. The other thing is, this is for anybody that's looking for something to watch tonight before hockey starts. Jake said, "Yo, I want to thank you for that WeWork recommendation. I watched it this evening. Crazy interesting stuff. You guys will got to watch that WeWork thing with Jared Leto and Anne Hathaway." And I know the acting lineup's tough.
That's a tough
It's
sell.
a tough sell, but I'm telling you,
I don't know enough about Anne Hathaway to dislike her, but Jared Leto,
for some reason, people don't like Anne Hathaway. I don't understand why. She seems nice.
I don't know enough about her.
Jared Leto's weird. He's
Yep.
like a cult or whatever, but he's also really good at portraying this guy who's a weird dude. So you should watch it. So
Lean into what you're good at.
it
Are
was
we going to
gonna
talk about Nick Robertson and asking Keith to show him
his feet? Yeah, well, I'm
We're
gonna
going to call him out
I
today.
don't think we are, man.
Okay, so yesterday was going normally, and then a clip from Spit and Chicklets went wild. And
It was at fucking 9 in the morning.
yeah,
It was really early.
sorry, it was normal to me. I'd already been up a few hours, but
Yeah.
I walked the dogs and that sort of thing. But so I get back and I'm looking at this thing, and they have a huge following anyway, so they get a ton of likes and clicks, whatever. But this one kind of stands out because it has to do with Mike Babcock. And anything Mike Babcock, as a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, we're going to be interested in. But this one set the world on fire. Jesse, go ahead and play it, please.
I will do that.
This is outrageous, dude.
I get a text from a player. He goes, have you heard what Babcock is up to again? And I'm like, no. So he gets to Columbus, and one of the first things he does is he calls in Boone Jenner, the captain of the team, and he says, let me see the photos in your phone. I want to know the type of person you are. What the is going on?
Is that even legal?
It feels like it's totally illegal.
Get him on the podcast to grill him about his antics as a head coach. Like, worry about the forecheck. Worry about your personnel. Worry about getting the power play humming at an alarming rate so you might have a chicken dick's chance of sneaking in a wild card spot. Why do you want to see throbbing dick pics from your captain on his iPhone? I don't understand this.
By the way, if I was going into one of these meetings having heard all these stories prior, I'm putting on like Rocky quotes on my photos.
Oh, yeah.
I'm putting on like my workout routine.
Oh, yeah? You know what I would put on my phone? I'd be standing here in this chair with my bin staring him right in the eye.
Oh, yeah, you know what's coming.
Like
What's wrong with this guy?
Now, I hope this story is true because then we look like real big idiots, but I think that Mike Babcock should come on this podcast and clear the air as to why he wants to see Pierce nipples from Instagram thoughts in his players' phones.
So,
they're a little more vulgar than us.
It's just
are
a
they?
bit.
We just talking about shitty pants.
I don't know. Yeah, you know what? I'm not going to throw stones in this glass house. Nope.
No, I should shut up.
Nope.
I should shut up.
So they invited Mike on the podcast. Strangely enough,
Has he accepted?
Mike declined, but he did choose to do the adult thing. And the adult thing, kids, is to argue back over Twitter. The Columbus Blue Jackets, really not the Columbus Blue Jackets, Mike Babcock and Boone Jenner released a joint statement. First from Mike Babcock, while meeting with our players and staff, I asked them to share off their phones family pictures as part of the process of getting to know them better. There was absolutely nothing more to it than that. The way it was portrayed on the Spit and Chicklets podcast was a gross misrepresentation of those meetings and extremely offensive. These meetings have been very important and beneficial, not only for me, but for the players and staff as well. And to have them depicted like this is irresponsible and completely inaccurate. Boone Jenner also said, while meeting with Babs, he asked me about my family and where I'm from, my upcoming wedding and hockey-related stuff. He then asked if I had pictures of my family, and I was happy to share some with him. He showed me pictures of his family. I thought it was a great first meeting and a good way for us to build a relationship. To have that blown out of proportion is truly disappointing. Now, if we go further than this, and I'm just going to give you this first, and then we're going to jump into it.
Oh, yeah. No, tell the whole story.
Aaron Portzline did an article, obviously, for The Athletic. Portsy, he's been on this show many times. He's great. He talked to Mike Babcock directly and said, Mike said, I've been doing this practice for a number of years. As you're trying to get to know players, they're trying to get to know you. You're sharing stuff about you. They're sharing stuff about their families, what's important to them, where they're from. We had a program like this in Detroit and Toronto. It was a really positive thing. I think it's really important to know the guys and for them to get to know you. What was portrayed on the podcast today was just so far from the truth. It isn't funny. It's actually offensive. And I thought you guys would love this last paragraph. Bissonnette, in a follow-up to the social media post, did not back away from the way the story was portrayed on the podcast. In fact, he said tons of players confirm it. Contacted by The Athletic, Bissonnette disputed Babcock's denial with a profanity. The NHL Players Association contacted for comment and said it is looking into the allegations. Now, we know that Johnny Gaudreau was interviewed by the media yesterday in Henderson because, famously we make fun of Steve for going not to Vegas but to Henderson.
They're doing it again.
Johnny Gaudreau was interviewed by Friedge and Jeff Merrick on the 32 Thoughts podcast. He said it was pretty normal thing.
Dude, the person I obviously felt worse for in all of this was Boone Jenner, but second,
Johnny
and
Gaudreau.
very underratedly, was Johnny Gaudreau. Like every major hockey media outlet is in the same place right now, and he, I believe, is the lone representative for his team.
Yes.
You wouldn't be doing your job if you didn't ask him about
No, you have to ask.
And so now I want to say he's a former guest of that podcast.
Yeah.
And it's just completely hot potato.
Yeah.
Just right into his life.
He's on today's episode of the podcast, and he said it was Babcock's way of kind of getting to know me. And
Chicklets?
No,
32 thoughts.
No. So I was saying I think he's a former guest of 32.
Of Chick. Yeah, he's been on Chicklets before. Yeah, and he said it was Babcock's way of kind of getting to know me, and I got to get to know him. The winger said, I wasn't uncomfortable at all. I was showing him pictures of my family. If I had a problem with it, I would have been like, I don't think I'm comfortable with that, but I had no problem with it.
And then they spoke to Bill Daly. Bill Daly said the PA is investigating, which also came out later in the day. Now, Jesse, can you go right back up to Johnny Gaudreau's last sentence?
Yeah. Where he says, I would have been like, I don't think I'm comfortable with that, but I had no problem with it.
Yes. I think that's a key statement. Now, who have we heard from the players? Who have we heard from on the Columbus side?
Boone Jenner and Johnny Gaudreau.
And of course, Mike Babcock himself, right? But I did say players. I don't doubt that those guys had a pretty normal conversation.
Yeah, and this I don't know if this adds context or not, but Boone Jenner got married like a month ago at least, so this would have been much earlier this summer.
Sure. Now, what I am curious about, and I'm not making an accusation here, but I think it's relevant.
No, make it.
No, it's not an accusation. Boone Jenner, as far as I know, is on a multi-year, multi-million-dollar contract. Johnny Gaudreau, very publicly on a multi-year, multi-million-dollar contract. I want to hear from fourth line left winger.
Right. And this has always been the criticism.
Because we know, and he's got a track record of this. This is not stuff that we're making up. When Mitch Marner was in the doghouse, we all know that story. When Johan Franzen, backed up by Chris Chelios later on, called Mike Babcock a bully and said it was terrible playing for him for his mental health, and Chelios backed him up. Mm-hmm. And there's been a few players that have said things, but they haven't put their names to it. Very clearly, in the way Mike Babcock previously coached in Detroit and Toronto, and that's all we have to go on, Anaheim too. Don't want to forget about Anaheim. We know that there was a hierarchy and that players that Mike could not win without, the star players on the team, were treated just a little bit differently from the players that maybe were tweeners.
All the complaints have come from players on their way in or on their way out. Right? So it's not just a young player problem, which Columbus has a ton of. Like, Mike Commodore was on his way out. Mike Modano was on his way out. Chris Chelios was on his way out. Jason Spezza to a much lesser degree.
Mike wanted to make sure he was on his way out. Mike tried to make sure he was on his way out. You're on your way out, Jason.
Wild how good he was for how long he was.
Yeah.
For the Leafs.
Yeah.
Completely.
And Mike would have wasted that.
He would have completely wasted for Nick Shore, man.
Yeah. And who also on his way out at that point.
But less so, apparently.
So the reality of it is, as of this recording, and we have heard things that maybe this story is not going away, but we don't know. That remains to be seen. As of this recording, it's difficult to say, everybody wants people to take a side. And there's no, I think the waters are muddy enough right now that there's no clear quote unquote side or truth about what happened. We just flat out do not know. But what I do find, I think you got to look at the motivations whenever you see this situation, right? So what are the motivations for Biz if he comes out and mischaracterizes a story? So let's assume, and by the way, I'm not saying that this is true, but let's assume the worst about Paul Bissonnette for a second.
Right.
And then we're going to do the same exercise, but with the Blue Jackets.
Right.
So let's assume the worst about Paul Bissonnette. What would Paul Bissonnette have to gain by making up, or probably more accurately, misconstruing a story like this?
He's trying to generate clicks for that little startup podcast of his that he's just started also.
And that doesn't get enormous amounts of clicks regardless.
No, it doesn't get hundreds of thousands of views per episode all the time. No. And they don't regularly get like Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon and Austin
Wayne Gretzky.
And Wayne Gretzky. And
he's got, not only has he got that podcast, he's got the NHL and TNT as well.
Right.
So it's not like Biz is, one of the criticisms I'll make is that sometimes the broadcasters of the NHL are too inside with the NHL.
Yes.
And
so I'm bringing something up. Sorry.
So
go ahead.
So it's not as though Paul Bissonnette's like, we're under the gun and we need more clicks.
Right.
Right? So, maybe you could chalk it up to, again, assuming worst case scenario here. He just felt like he wanted attention on September the 12th,
Yes.
2023. One thing I want to say about this is that I do feel like if anybody in the media knows what the average NHLer is talking about or is well connected to, it's Paul Bissonnette. And it doesn't, for better or for worse, Paul Bissonnette is very, very intimately tied to a lot of NHL players currently playing.
Yeah.
That's obvious.
Current and former. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like, you can think what you want about the guy positively or negatively. Like, you cannot take away that he's extremely well connected. Also, he said his piece. The Blue Jackets said their piece. And I was truly alarmed, genuinely alarmed by the complete, and I'm going to stare down the barrel of the camera for this. I'm begging you to get media literate. Holy shit. Like, the Blue Jackets released their statement and people went, oh, well, that's that then.
So let's
Holy fucking shit, guys.
So let's go ahead and
Get a brain.
assume the worst about the Blue Jackets. Let's go deep into that.
No, here, wait.
What? Sorry.
Because the Blue Jackets statement came out and people were like, well, then that's it. So a guy who's on like the biggest hockey podcast there is, and he's on TNT, tweets the following: "We're a players podcast. You want to fuck with the players? We're going to bend you over, no spit, no lube, sandpaper finish." You think that gets tweeted? And just a little screenshot from the Blue Jackets, and this story is done. Mm-hmm. Not a fucking chance, guys. Imagine, like, it's the equivalent of, imagine Kelly Rudy going on Hockey Night in Canada, going, well, you know what, sandpaper finish, that's what I'm all about.
All right.
Like,
It's a little different.
there might be some follow-up.
All right.
Guys,
Can we also-
there were some shocking reactions yesterday.
Can we provide the context of Babcock's history of doing this as well?
And that's why I want to talk about, to that point, Jesse, let's get into that. Let's talk about the Blue Jackets' motivations here. Worst case scenario, they're covering this up. Mm-hmm. Jesse, talk about the resume. What were the risks with hiring Mike Babcock for Jarmo Kekalainen?
Well, something like this would happen. It'd go off the rails, and immediately nobody likes him, and he has to be fired before the season.
Interestingly, when the Leafs hired Sheldon Keefe, or when the Ducks hired Greg Cronin,
mm-hmm.
This was not something that people would be like, Greg Cronin, he's got a history of that. It's because Mike's done shit, right?
Yeah, and people generally don't. Within the game, there are some circles that don't enjoy Mike Babcock. I think that's very clear. And with this history, with this specifically, like he does this and has done this for, I guess it's decades, because it stems back to Detroit. And Friedman had it in his piece here where he says, it's clear after reaching out to as many people as I could, Babcock has asked to see people's family photos, at least going back to his days in Detroit. He did it in Toronto, and now he's doing it in Columbus. In some cases, apparently there were family presentations where a player would send pictures, Babcock would put them on a screen and have that player talk about his family to the team. So they're doing like literal class presentations about their photos.
It's like elementary school.
Yeah. And then
it makes me uncomfortable, but like, is it wrong?
No, but this was a part that really stood out to me where he says it wasn't just players. He's done it with people on his various staffs. While going through Columbus's hiring process, he did it with some of their executives.
So, did you ask for family photos during the job interview?
Considering everything,
he knew he was getting hired. Come on.
Considering everything that's been reported about Babcock, if a lot of people really hated this, we probably have heard it much sooner. I don't know about that.
I don't know about that.
I don't know about that, Elliot.
I disagree with that.
On Tuesday, I've heard from several people who liked it and a couple who didn't. One current player who has never played for Babcock said he'd heard about this recently and it would make him uncomfortable, although he admitted the way he heard the story was like a game of broken telephone. And back to Biz, this is clearly a talking point within the players in the game.
Yes.
He knows what the guys are talking about. And they're talking about this. And it sounds like a lot of guys are a lot more uncomfortable with it than we're hearing through people like Friedman and through the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Because what do hockey players do, guys? They respect the man. They are hierarchical. They are not guys
There's
that
no
wanna
way that's a word.
Yeah, it is.
Hierarchical?
Yeah, they like a
Not a chance.
It is a word. Check it out.
We're getting into a fight. Sorry.
They don't want to rock the boat.
No, you're You're absolutely right.
And so what happens is, instead of going to the powers that be, they'll just talk amongst themselves. Now, Biz's original statement, and I think this is an important point, talked about a player relaying information.
Yep.
The actual text message that he got, he said, "Oh, Babs is doing this," and I think it referenced Boone Jenner. The player, I don't believe in Biz's original statement from the text message, was somebody who had directly dealt with it.
So the text that Biz posted directly to Twitter about
One
that
text
he got.
out of, I'm sure, dozens he received.
So he got one text that said, "You got to sneak into your pod about Babs getting guys to show their photos on the big screen. He's doing it to guys in Columbus now. Same shit he did to me. Guys need to know that's coming. It's a fucking joke."
So it's obviously someone who was in Anaheim, Detroit, or Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
It's obviously someone who did play under Babs at some point. Who knows, man?
I talked to a few people that I know, one of which did play for Babs yesterday. And I said, "Do you believe it?" Person said, "Yeah."
So,
Now that doesn't mean anything, because clearly they had never had it and it had never gone through and whatever. I think what we have to understand here is that I think the bigger picture is that Columbus has a huge amount of investment in making sure Mike Babcock looks squeaky clean. And so you have to understand that, okay, that press kit that we got, from the Boone Jenner and the Mike Babcock statement, we're talking to the head coach, we're talking to the captain. Again, it goes back to, what about the players who may or may not make the team, who feel like if they say, "I'm uncomfortable with that," like Johnny Gaudreau said he would have if he felt uncomfortable, well, that's instantly a mark against you. Now, I don't want to talk about my private life, Babs. I just want to talk about work.
Yeah, and I think that was lost in the point made on Spitting Chicklets, is they yell about, like, "Hey, go figure out the power play."
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of what these hockey players who are uncomfortable with this think about Mike Babcock. They're like, "Why are you asking me about the photos on my camera roll? Go figure out who's playing on PP1."
I also, like, again, I don't know if there's anything fundamentally wrong with being like, "Hey, like, how's your family?" or whatever.
No.
But it was presented in a way that made it sound like a demand. But
I mean, again, if you're a tweener and your coach asks you for something, how much license do you have to say no?
so that's
You
the
don't.
thing. That's the thing. It's players feeling like they don't have agency. So let's say he was innocently being like, "Hey, let me see some." First of all, like, can't I just tell you a fucking story? Why do you got to see it? But okay, fine. You want to see my family so you can picture them. You see, saying it out loud sounds fucking.
Hey, Maddie, can I see some pictures on your phone? Isn't that fucking uncomfortable?
Yeah, that was
Right, but
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
By the way, Maddie, don't show me pictures. on your
these
phone.
don't.
in these contexts,
Happy to
like
just follow you on Instagram.
it's set up a little differently, where there's like been formal presentations and things like that. Like, it's clearly a team bonding exercise that Babcock has used multiple times throughout his history as a head coach. And some guys aren't a fan of it, and some guys can just
Team
understand
bonding
why.
is going paintballing.
Yeah.
Team bonding is not that. And listen, if you think it's weird, if you don't think it's weird, I just want you to imagine going into the office tomorrow and your boss asking you the same question.
Show me.
That's what this is.
Show me a picture of your kids.
I actually,
There's a reason you
I had
haven't seen
somebody-
Leo for quite some time. Like, because people got fucking weird, and so I'm not posting them anymore.